episode 32 of the Simply Great Relationships podcast. We're so glad that you could join us today. I'm Marina Varon, and with me is someone special. We have Leah Williams today, and we're going to talk all about how to overcome something that I see a lot of, I'm sure you see a lot of, that good old saying, we just grew apart. So today we're going to be covering how to know if you've grown apart, common times, because there's definitely a pattern that we've seen in terms of times when it's likely for couples to grow apart, why it matters. I think that's a really important one. And then, of course, how to reconnect effectively. We made a really great bonus for you for this episode, so make sure you stay until the very end because we're going to tell you how to get it. So, Leah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Leah Williams. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in New York, and I see families, couples, individuals here at NASA Wellness. I really enjoy working with couples, especially people who are struggling with this connection and reconnection, and being able to help them sort of overcome that before it becomes something much larger.
Okay, so why don't we just, jump into it. So how do you know if you've grown apart? Like, what for you do you see kind of as the red flags of when couples come in and it's starting to get there?
Well, that's really interesting because it seems to me that couples have a hard time seeing when they're starting to grow apart. It's a really sneaky, kind of insidious thing that sort of happens. And then suddenly couples are here and it's become this big crisis. And it's like, oh God, how did we get here? When really that disconnect has been this sneaky little thing that's been going along with them and inviting these much bigger things to happen. So as far as the major red flags, I would really say if you find that you're just going through, every family has like the family script or the daily script where it's like the, hey, have a good day, I love you. For me, it's the, every time I come to work, I send my husband the text of like, hey, made it to work. And then when I'm coming home, heading home, I love you.
Yeah.
And
so like the rituals of connection that you preserve as a couple.
Absolutely. But if you are just going through the daily script and not adding any more attention, especially when kids are in the picture or other things are happening and it's like that you're going through like, oh, so-and-so has to go here, so-and-so has to go here, love you, bye. That comes in, and when you're not paying attention to that and that's all you're doing, that disconnect can start. Or also noticing when you're not, the times you have together, you're not really even talking to each other. You don't feel like you can. So you may notice, okay, life's happening, life's getting in the way. We're making the excuses, right? Because it does happen. Things get busy. But there's no effort to change that. Or even to say to your partner, hey, I know we've had a busy month.
Like,
let's do something this week. Let's take a couple hours and see what we can do. But when you just let it go, where it's like, well, I'm feeling this way, but I don't know if they are, so I'm just going to let it go. I'm probably nuts. And invites that disconnect to start and to grow.
Okay, so a couple of really important things. So it's like when the rituals of connection start to slip away, or when it's like really, really busy and you almost don't feel comfortable like acknowledging to your partner and saying like, hey, I miss you. Let's do something to reconnect. It's like, we're really busy and we're letting busy take over. And I feel like busy is like a great sabotager of relationships.
It is, and we'll talk about this, but a lot of times those things that make us busy are really great. It could be like, we've added a new person to our family, or someone got a great new job opportunity, and these really wonderful things potentially, and no one wants to be the one to be like, I'm putting the damper on, you're happy, and I feel like this is ruining our life.
Sure. I totally get that. I think it can be really hard to address that, because especially when it's like a new exciting thing that you're supposed to be so like happy about. But it's really like taking some time from the nice things, from the date nights, from the like little getaways, from the things that kind of nurture the relationship.
Absolutely. And then being able to figure out that new norm, also including your relationship in it.
Yeah. Okay. So I think this is kind of touching on my next question, which is like, what would be some really common times for couples to experience this?
I have found so often it is around major life transitions.
Mm-hmm.
I have several couples that I have seen where it may not be right at that moment of disconnect, but they've been able to trace it back when we've been working together. Where it's like, oh, we had kids, and suddenly maybe one member of the couple like really took on that role of parenting, and the other maybe was like more of a provider, and then because all of this was happening and was shaken up, okay, well, now there wasn't the attention on the relationship. There's some other person that relies on us.
Yeah.
I've also seen it the opposite way when couples who are in that kind of sandwich generation who are not only caring for young children but also caring for aging parents. Yeah. There's so many people who need the attention, who need the care, that there's almost this assumption like, well, my partner's going to be there. Like, they know. So that attention and connection is just like, okay, we'll get to it when we get to it. We have all these other things that have to happen first. I'm trying to think. Other times that it invites the disconnect, if you find a colleague of mine in grad school did a really good study on this. When you're seeking support regarding relationship issues for people who are not your partner, so if you're going to family, if you're going to friends, primarily, not that people shouldn't have support networks, those are so hugely important, but if you find yourself going and talking about relationship issues with somebody else, that invites that wedge, because not only are you not seeking to fix that with your partner and having those hard but oftentimes rewarding conversations, you're pulling someone else in and triangulating them in a way.
So when do you know, kind of like, because I can see how that's a very fine line, right?
Definitely.
What would be some of your suggestions around like how to know when you're crossing it? Like when you're just kind of seeking support from your support network in a healthy way, and when that's becoming like something that could impact the integrity of your primary relationship?
Some of it is really kind of a gut thing. Like if you know, like, I shouldn't be talking about this with this person. If the words, please don't tell so-and-so that I came to you about this.
Yeah, that's definitely some red flag words there.
Yes, and it could be something that feels very benign to you, the issue that you're bringing up, like, well, I just need to bounce ideas off of. But at that point where it becomes a secret, or it just feels like, oh, this really has more to do with this person, but maybe I don't want to talk to them about it.
Yeah.
Or like, I'm really nervous how that conversation is going to go. That's kind of when you're crossing that line. If it's something that has been opened in your relationship, you've talked about it, you kind of have a working thing, and you're just kind of seeking just some extra validation from someone or something else that's already being dealt with in the partnership, that's very different. Yeah. Because again, if that person somehow says, like, to your partner, hey, I heard about whatever, that's not a surprise. Yeah. It's not something new. Or even if you've had a conversation like, hey, I know we talked about this, I'm also going to talk to this other person about this. Like, I think I just need another perspective. And being able to have that openness and vulnerability with your partner to say that. Again, it's not a surprise. It's not something that comes up where it's like, why did you say that? You've, gone outside of this, the boundaries of this relationship. Yeah.
And I know I've definitely seen clients like that where there's been information shared with people outside the relationship that's really impacted the relationship itself, because there was never consent given to share that relationship. So it sounds to me like that's a really key part, is to do that check-in with your partner and say, like, hey, this is a hard thing we're going through, or like, it doesn't even have to be a hard thing. Like, this is something we're going through. Is it okay? Like, just giving them the heads up. It's almost like a courtesy. I see it as like a courtesy you extend to your partner, and if you make a habit of that, like when a harder thing comes up, it doesn't feel as vulnerable because you already have a habit of that.
Yeah, definitely. And I find this a lot, and certainly not exclusively, but with parents or other parts of the family. And it could be like, okay, so they've had all of this experience. Can we take from their experience? And just kind of see what their perspective is. And I think oftentimes it helps buffer that when you give we are the team, we are the decision-making force. I'm not going to them to have them tell me what to do, but just to take in, the wisdom of other people or the experience of other people.
I love that distinction, because I definitely see a lot of couples where the one partner feels like the other is being almost like manipulated or told what to do by the family.
Yes.
And then feels like that comes back to them and their ability to converse in the confines of their relationship doesn't exist.
Well, it's like the building autonomy, right? For your family unit within the structure of a larger family. And again, not shutting people out entirely, having those nice healthy boundaries, but having them.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Is really kind of key.
So I can definitely see how if this doesn't happen, that adds to that, the fuel of that fire of growing apart, of that feeling of like, we're just growing apart. So I guess the big question is like, why does it matter? I mean, you hear it all the time, like people just grew apart. We just grew apart. It's tossed out, so easily. In society, right? It's almost like there's this expectation that the relationship has an expiration date, and you just grow apart. It's like dying of natural causes.
You had a great run, right?
Yeah.
Appreciate it for what it was.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that also comes from this belief that has somehow seeped into, at least our society, if not others, that relationships are either they are or they aren't. And I've had people say that to me in session, like, well, either that's there or it's not there. It's just like the spark idea.
Yeah.
And it's really, relationships are organic, growable, changeable things. And as you go through them, you have to nurture that. You don't nurture that, it dies. Yes, it's going to die if you don't put that effort in. And so,
I love that. Let's just pause for a second and let everybody absorb that. Like, a relationship, if it's not nurtured, will die, right? Like a relationship's like a succulent.
It is. And connection is the sunlight. So, as far as why does it matter? It doesn't feel good to feel like you can't go to your partner or that things are off. No one gets into a relationship wanting to not feel connected. I think, there's so much, research that has seeped into pop culture and more general culture now about the need for connection, just as humans, not even as partners. That's what we're looking for. We're not isolationists. We're not, we are communal animals. And you're looking for somebody who kind of gets you, knows you, is going to still be there with you. There's a reason we partner up in the first place. And not being able to feel that this partner you have somehow chosen is that there for you. Not only does it not feel good, but it also leads into all these other things. It invites the potential for much larger issues. It invites the potential for infidelity. It invites that going to other people and saying this doesn't really matter. You're my real supports. It invites, wanting to end your relationship based on this potentially false idea, that we're just not compatible anymore. Where the work hasn't gone into yet to try to reconnect. It's just we just connected, so it must be over. Again, that same idea. The spark is gone, so must be done.
I always like to challenge people on that and say, what have you done to keep that spark going? And I feel like that's one that generally, leaves people a little deer in headlight.
Well, it's almost offensive, right? Well, it's supposed to be there or it's not. So what do you mean I'm supposed to do something with that? Or I'm supposed to change that? That's not something, I don't know that people realize that is something that can have work done around it.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing, too, is that the more disconnected you are, if you're not talking about things, if you're not feeling those positive experiences aren't happening, those little tiny things that if you're in a better place with your partner may not grow into this such big issue, do. Because it's you suddenly now have these more negative feelings towards your partner. Yeah. And it's I'll choose just a really benign example, but the way you chew is terrible. I can't live like this anymore. Yes, and that just tends to grow, and it's just this icky feeling that comes out in so many different ways. I always refer to it with people as the emotional whack-a-mole. It's there, this experience is there, you're not dealing with it, you're not talking about it, well, it's going to pop up over here. And either it's going to be a dumb fight about nothing with your partner, or maybe you start, lashing out at your children, or you start lashing out at work or something. you shove it down over here, it pops up over here.
Yeah, like, it's gonna go somewhere.
It is.
That frustration is gonna go somewhere.
Right, and you find that frustration tolerance everywhere has been lowered. And a lot of times, that's not where people want to be. Although, emotion is information, feelings are information, that's letting you know that you don't like something that's going on, but you gotta do something with that.
Yeah.
Because that's not a way to live, to just have all of that negativity around you everywhere.
Would you say that's a good red flag when you find yourself, like, more agitated at work, or shorter with your kids, or really annoyed by things that you usually let slide under the radar? Like, is that a good indicator that maybe you haven't been nurturing your relationship, and that you haven't felt nurtured in turn by your relationship?
Definitely. Because, again, we talk about it being this very sneaky thing, and it's going to come up somewhere. So if that's one of the first places you're seeing it, you're noticing this change in your own mood and a change in your own frustration tolerance, definitely. It's an opportunity to examine what's going on with you.
Okay, that's a great one, because I definitely know, people do say that all the time. Like, such trivial little fights become these, like, exorbitantly large, not talking to each other for days type of events. And to me, you were not fighting about the loud chewing sound.
Right.
You just use that as a gateway to let it all out. And did that feel good? And again, that goes back to the question Meredith and I always talk about, which is that how you want your relationship to feel? Right? And it sounds to me like that's definitely not. But
no.
It's a really good indicator to watch out for. And I love that analogy, the emotional whack-a-mole. Like, you can't expect that emotion to just dissipate. It is definitely going to go somewhere. It is definitely going to pop its head out somewhere.
Somewhere in your life that maybe feels safer. And I think it's funny that you brought up that, like, are we fighting about this, or are we fighting about something else? Because I have also seen that. I've seen that in session where it's come up and it's like, I don't think the parking spot is what made you this irate or what made you this angry. And it does. It also stems back into the experience you're having with somebody else, or not feeling like someone has your back, or that they're being a partner, and these other really negative feelings that all come back to disconnect.
Definitely. And I think it's just so unfortunate to use that much energy, because fighting takes up a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Fighting takes up a lot of emotional bandwidth, a lot of time, a lot of space. To use that, like, for all of that energy for causing more kind of separation as opposed to more closeness, because you can channel that energy so differently.
Absolutely. And something that I had a very sweet couple who would always talk about, we don't want to waste time anymore. So the idea that, like, they realized that all these arguments that they were having, it was just, they have so limited time anyway. We don't want to waste this time anymore. And it's true. It's you can create or you can destroy. How do you want to spend your limited time and resources? Because that is a common thing that comes up, like, we just don't have time for this, or the time has gone away. Same with those transitions, something else comes in. I know I mentioned, new family members, but also, like, okay, I got a great new job. I may have gotten a promotion. Now I have more job responsibilities. I'm expected to have more hours. That takes away from this. Okay, this really great thing. So now what are you going to do with the time that you have? With the hour that you see one another, do you want to be arguing about, like, you didn't put the dishes away, right?
Yeah. I think those, like, happy transitions are where people kind of get a little lost, because you're supposed to feel really good about it, right? So things like new job, new house, new baby, all things you're just supposed to be ecstatic about. But really, when we look at these things are extremely stressful and, like, time hijacking.
They are.
So don't hold that expectation that just because you're going to look back one day and say, that was such a happy time, that while you're living in it, that you're supposed to just, this happiness is supposed to come your way without you intentionally doing anything. Because new job, new stress, right? New learning curve, new people you're with. You know, like, yes, happiness also, but probably a whole bunch of stuff in front of it.
Absolutely. I mean, there's the index, right? It's like 101 most stressful things that you can give people, and it tallies up. Well, like, those really wonderful things are like the top stressors. Like, they carry the most points. And definitely when the shoulds come in, like, we should be feeling happy about this. That I don't feel happy about this. And again, that's when you can almost create the disconnection in your relationship yourself of having that thought, I should be happy. I should be okay. I shouldn't feel stressed, upset, angry, frustrated, anxious. And to bring that up would mean maybe they're going to think something's wrong with me, or that I don't support them, especially if it's a partner's positive.
Yeah.
Although they think that I don't want this for them. Because I'm feeling these other things, and it becomes this very isolating experience, and you're by yourself in it, and you can't share those things, and then again invites all the resentments and the other stuff to build in, where the very negativity you're trying to avoid is not what you're getting.
Yeah, and definitely fuels the we're just growing apart, because if one person doesn't feel comfortable, addressing what's going on for them in the relationship and being genuine about their emotions. And emotions are, like, they're a mixed bag. We're very rarely just happy or just miserable. There's always kind of elements of a little bit of everything in there. Of course, if you're going to emotionally kind of isolate, that's going to contribute to we grew apart, because you're literally taking yourself away from the unit you're supposed to be.
Yeah. Or even, I've had a couple of couples come in, and it's been that either once the kids were grown and gone, or as kids were growing, both of these situations happened to be wives. Like, they either started their own business or went back to work, and then that becomes not only the like I'm anxious, sad, whatever, for their partners, but it's also like that we've had this I'm the provider, you're the nurturer, caregiver dynamic for so long that the change in dynamic can make a lot of those feelings come up for people. And again, something you don't necessarily want to like advertise and bring up and be like, hey, I'm feeling a little bit threatened in my position in this family based on what you're doing. But again, having that conversation can save you so much more heartache down the road. Or because a lot of times we can't anticipate what each other needs necessarily, but when you've been with someone for a while, you can pick up on what's going on with them. You know something's up.
Of course.
And that, like, if they're not willing to share with you, do you feel comfortable prying? And again, leading to that disconnect. Like, if I don't feel like I can ask you what's going on with you, or I'm nervous to ask you because I don't know what this is going to look like, it's all new, can then lead to that. Like, down the road.
And I think if you're framing it for yourself as prying, that's already like a bit of a red flag.
Yes.
As opposed to approaching with
checking in with those more positive experiences. It's like I know I'm digging into your stuff. Let me just let you experience this, and you'll bounce back, and it'll be fine. Yeah. And then a lot of times there's that cycle happens. Like, things are fine, we're all good and happy. It's like how it was, and then this will come up again, and I know you'll be fine because we've gone through this before. So I'm gonna let you go. Deal with this on your own. Yeah. And that can only happen for so long before it's just too big.
Of course. I think we should never assume our partners are okay and gonna handle their own stuff.
Absolutely.
When you're in a relationship, like, my personal core belief that really guides my work is you should never assume your partner's gonna handle whatever on their own. You should always be checking in, and not that they can't, you should always be checking in and seeing what kind of support they might need, want, at that point in time. And that, like, and support, people always think support are like these long drawn out conversations and emotions and tissues and like, support is sitting beside your partner on the couch after they've had a stressful day. Right. It can be so subtle and non-threatening.
No, certainly. And it's just, I guess it's just that people go through this for so long, and then they believe that someone else just has it, and then again those resentments start to build up. And I always like to frame it as you're allowing someone to make the informed choice.
Mm-hmm.
So either making your wants, needs, whatever known to say, hey, this is where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I need from you, want from you.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way the other person can say, like, I can meet this for you, I can be here with you, or I can't, and here's what I can do for you,
Mm-hmm.
rather than just you should know that I can't do this by myself, and I'm going to sit
Mm-hmm.
here and just be silently angry at you until you
Mm-hmm.
pick up that I'm mad and know what to do
Mm-hmm.
to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
But allowing someone to make that informed choice, it changes the relationship. Having those check-ins, like, hey, I know that you normally do this and you've got it. Is that still where we are?
Yeah.
And if someone says to you, like, yeah, this is not a problem, okay, I'm just checking in. Done.
Yeah. It's that simple, right? I know for me and for, I'm sure for a lot of therapists, like, it just makes my blood boil every time I hear they should just know.
Oh, yeah. It's this belief that, like, well, if you've been together for a certain amount of time, then you are one mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that just so often isn't the case. And that's setting yourself and your partner up for failure to have that expectation that they should
Mm-hmm.
just know what's going on. Because, again, just like the relationship is a growing, changeable thing,
Mm-hmm.
so are we as humans.
Mm-hmm.
The ideas and needs that we have, they do alter. Something relatively stable, but how that looks
Mm-hmm.
can be very different over the course of a life and of a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You've got people, well, we've been together for 30-something years. Okay, well, who you were 30 years ago and how your needs were met then maybe look very different now.
Sure.
Allow your partner to make the informed choice to meet them or not.
Yeah.
Don't expect that they just are going to know you enough to know how you've changed.
Yeah. So I think where this conversation kind of started is that another vulnerable point is any time when you go through an identity transition. So maybe you were used to being stay-at-home mom and now your kids are launched and you start your own business and you go from stay-at-home mom to entrepreneur. That's an identity shift.
Mm-hmm.
And in the context of your relationship, like, one person can't identity shift without the other person doing so also. So that I see as like a pretty big transition where it can feel like you're growing apart when that like complementary shift doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something to be really mindful of when your relationship probably needs a little extra nurturing. Because if it doesn't get that, that's where that feeling of we just grew apart can really grow quite big.
I can't count how many times I've heard well, I grew and they didn't. They stayed the same.
Yes.
And yeah, that feeling is going to be that I'm now in this different place and you're expecting me to respond the same way that I did. And when I don't, there's that anger and shift and, again, disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Where being able to be like, hey, this is where I am now. Or all along the way, being able to say, this is what I want and need from you.
Mm-hmm.
Allows for more for that transition to happen together rather
Mm-hmm.
than becoming such an isolating event.
Mm-hmm.
Isolated and isolating.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely agree with you that those times need the extra nurturance, extra
Mm-hmm.
time, a couple more check-ins, just like
Mm-hmm.
making sure you're good. This is a big
Mm-hmm.
deal.
Mm-hmm.
Because it happens all different ways, right? So we talked about going from being mom to entrepreneur. The opposite also is true. That
Mm-hmm.
we expect that when we've made these really great changes that people are fully on board with them. Some people are a little more ambivalent about the
Mm-hmm.
changes in their lives
Mm-hmm.
and are internally combating that I should feel.
Yeah.
So making that okay, making the
Mm-hmm.
ambivalence okay, making the complicated feelings. We've talked about a couple different places, in this conversation that like allowing yourself to feel what you're feeling and that to be okay.
Yeah.
And to feel comfortable communicating that out.
Mm-hmm. That's huge. So I guess the big question is, how do we reconnect effectively during these like times of transition and any time when we notice these red flags in our relationship of like, oh, this is fuel for that feeling of we're growing apart?
So it's kind of a complicated answer. I would say number one is just like commit to reconnecting, especially the longer you've gone without doing it, putting the effort in. Like it's going to feel strange. It's going to feel not normal because it has not been your norm. There is truth to that. There's reality to that. If you haven't sat down on the sofa and had like a real conversation that's not that script with your partner, and suddenly it's like
that's not running through the kids'
the
like,
schedule and
the to-do list
and the daily routine. Oh, so and so got in trouble at school. Can you fix that? Yeah, it's gonna feel weird, and it may take a while to be like, what do we even talk about? Because I don't know who you are anymore. What do you like? So committing to that and really just getting comfortable with the discomfort. It will pass. Like one way or another, you'll get over it. As long as you commit to like, we're in this, we're a partnership, we're doing it. The other thing is that recognizing that each couple is going to have their own way of doing it and allowing yourself to be vulnerable in that. A lot of times when I'm working with couples, I'll harken back to the beginnings of their relationship, and I feel like people always look at me like I have 17 heads when I'm just like, tell me how you met. What do you guys like to do? And they're like, we're here because things aren't going well. It's like, no, like at one point things were, and let's look and see what your foundation was. You know, how it looked when you were, you know, if you met in college, it's going to look different in your 50s. But there are probably some key things that you guys agreed on or liked, whether that was like your movie buffs, you like going out to eat places, you know, you got together on some kind of like political campaign. There are probably some things that brought you together. That the overarching theme still is there. Yeah. And it's finding the way to incorporate that into your life now and how that can look. But recognizing that, like, it's going to be different for every couple. I think the other thing that is at play here is that, again, we're very social, you know, creatures. So the comparing of relationships, like, well, ours is this, but they go out and do, you know, our neighbors go out and they do 10-mile hikes together every weekend, and then they do this, and like, well, maybe that's not the way you connect. Like, feel free to go hiking, but that might not be it for you. It might be sitting down and having dinner together. Something really small. And I like to tell people, like, it doesn't have to be the grand gesture, because everyone wants the, you know, you don't have to stand up with the boombox. You can just, like, you know, just check in. How you doing? You know, taking the 20 minutes. I like to tell, you know, couples just sort of incorporate this in their life. I think it helps. When whatever the end of your day is, wherever it is you're overlapping, take 20 minutes and just kind of hang out. Like, the kids will be fine for 20 minutes. You don't have to get into the laundry list of things, but just be. Take the temperature of the room, see how the day went. Like, get an idea of where your partner is. And that even just very small thing can at least invite the reconnect. Gives the space for it. And doesn't compete necessarily with the we have no time. Because it's like, maybe it's not 20 minutes, maybe it's, you know, 10, 15, whatever the overlap is. Take that first little bit of time before the other responsibilities creep in and life creeps in. And just see where you are.
If you need some help with that, we have the Rituals of Connection bonus that we made that has different rituals of connection that are kind of already on a sheet for you. Don't remember what episode that's from, so we will link it below. But I think that might be a good one for couples who are like, well, we don't even know where to start. That one will give you plenty of ideas, and maybe if you try a couple of those, one will stick.
Oh, yeah.
Or a few will stick.
The other one I like to give couples who have become so out of the habit of just sitting with each other is the New York Times 36 Questions for Love, which really should be 36 Questions for Intimacy. And because that's just like, if you don't have content, you don't like, I don't know what to ask you about, to learn more about you, that allows it. And it's so nice that it's like chunked up, where it's the first questions don't require so much vulnerability when you feel like having the conversation is the vulnerable part. You know, talking about who do you want to invite to dinner is much less vulnerable. But as you work through them, you know, over time, you know, you get to those ones that ask a lot more of yourself, but you've also built this really nice, like you said, ritual and thing of like, we're doing this, let's take a question. And it's a much more comfortable experience.
So we will link that below also, so that if you are not sure what we're talking about, we will link that below, so you can also see the 36 questions, which I think are a wonderful couples resource. I really, really like those. So what would be some other, you know, ways that are maybe like big picture things that really foster a sense of connection? Like, what is the overall kind of paradigm shift or like mental shift that couples need to make in terms of shifting from a mindset of we're growing apart to a mindset of like, we are a strong and connected couple that nurtures our relationship?
Well, I think I was watching your previous episode, the idea of shifting from the I to we, being able to stay in as a we, because that also invites that whole idea invites the idea of partnership, and then again just the commitment to it, the idea that again this relationship is a growing, changeable thing, and we're gonna do it. It's an active thing. It's like believing that it's not just this passive thing that's gonna happen or it's not, that you have some control over that or some influence on that. So that's what I would say is really the overarching theme is believing that you can influence it, and being able to then act from there.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. I think that's holding that belief is really, really key. Like that's where action, I think, needs a little, when action needs a little push, like focusing on your beliefs can really help you make that push.
Well, definitely. It flows from there.
All right. Well, we don't want you to just listen. We want you to listen and integrate all of this amazing advice from Leah today into your relationship. So we put together a really great bonus for you, and you can find it at simplygreatrelationship/podcast /032. And it's a really good bonus. It will definitely take you through a lot of the things that we talked today and help you integrate those into your relationship. So let's talk about takeaways. For me, I think the biggest takeaway is emotional whack-a-mole. I just love that. I think that is such a good and like easy.
It's vivid, right?
Yeah, it's a great vivid image to go to, but it's like so good to be aware of. Like, is that time I was like rude to my barista my sign that there's a bit of emotional whack-a-mole going on?
Right.
And what does that mean? It like, I think keeping that in that image in mind and like questioning yourself can really like lead to, do I need to nurture my relationship a little more? Am I feeling a little distance? Is my partner feeling a little distance? Like, I think having emotional whack-a-mole on the brain's a really, really useful tool.
I think for me it was that idea of asking is this what you want your life to be like? Is this what you want your relationship to be like? Do you want to live like this? Because again, even framing it that way is not just a yes and I'm fine with it, or no and we're dissolving it, but it invites that empowering idea of like, you can do something with this.
Yeah.
You don't like it, change it.
Yeah. So much power in that. There's really so much power when people realize that.
Definitely. And because when things are not going well, it's so easy for people to feel powerless. And that things are happening to them and that they are a victim of their circumstances.
Yeah.
Rather than like, I have some say in this. I have some things that I can do. There are action steps I can take. Maybe I can't change this, this, and this, but I can work on some other parts that may change how that plays out.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's all for today. We hope that you take these tips and all this wonderful information that Leah talked about today and start integrating it right away. However, if this is something that's been going on in your relationship, this is something you're very aware of, and you've started having these conversations and they really haven't gone as planned, and you've made yourself vulnerable and you feel like you just keep hitting that same wall, and you're not really getting your relationship to feel how you want it to feel, the fastest way to really like get there is to work with one of us. This is what we do. So you can always contact us directly. You can send us an email at info@simplygreatrelationships.com, or you can text us at 914-440-4814. That's also going to be linked down below. Or you can visit our website, simplygreatrelationships.com, and submit a request there. You can also reach out to Leah via our website. We are also very happy to connect you with her, because this is hard stuff.
It is. And again, like we talked about, left unchecked, it can definitely lead into much bigger things that are harder to come back from.
Yeah. So if you know that this is something that's going on, reach out. No harm in that. So we'd love to continue the conversation with you guys in our Facebook group, where we'll be hooking you up with all kinds of tips, tricks, live streams, all exclusive for our members. And you can find our group at facebook.com/groups/simplygreatrelationships, or you can just go to the website, simplygreatrelationships.com, and click on the Facebook icon there. We look forward to hearing from you, and we will see you next time. Bye.